Good evening. I'm Leland Vittert. More of our investigation into Americans playing for China in the Olympics, why they think it's just fine to embrace the communist regime, and why the media loves the idea. Plus, the maskless Super Bowl in the mask mandate capital of America. If Los Angeles' mayor ignoring his own mandate won't end the mask madness, what will? But first, World War I started over far less than what's about to happen in Ukraine. Here is that country's president saying war is likely by this time Wednesday.
На батьківщину і стати пліч-опліч з українською армією, з нашою дипломатією, з нашим народом.
He has since walked that back a little bit, but the point is real. War is almost certainly upon us. Vladimir Putin believes this is his moment to rebuild the Soviet Union and return Mother Russia to a position of respect around the world. We want to come over to the monitor to show you the state of play. 130,000 troops right now surround Ukraine. Russian forces here in the Crimea that Russia controls, here in the sea with their warships, and then also in Belarus to the north, there's Russian positions. 9 different possible avenues for them to invade from the north, east, and south. U.S. Embassy personnel in Kyiv, the capital here, have now moved within 30 miles of the Russian border with an easy escape route to Poland. These are satellite images of the troop buildup, and Putin continues to push men and equipment towards the border. You can see here would be Moscow. Here are some of their forward staging areas. We understand a lot of these have cleared out in the past 24 hours, south in Crimea as well. They still have a lot of folks here and also near Moscow. These are clearing out as people head down towards the border. From the Pentagon perspective, there is no explanation other than an invasion that is imminent.
I would just say this, that he continues to advance his readiness should he choose to go down a military path here. And should he choose to invade again, he is doing all the things you would expect him to do.
President Biden has used every synonym of severe to describe the U.S. and NATO response to an invasion, short of committing U.S. troops. If you listen to the president and his spokespeople, they have run out of ways to describe how angry they are going to be. But Putin continues. Why? It's simple. Putin grew up in the KGB during Soviet times. At that point, the empire extended all the way here through Poland, East Germany, and Czechoslovakia as satellite states, through Ukraine, which was part of the former Soviet Union. Putin wants that glory back. Preventing him is the rapid expansion of NATO. And you can see all of these countries that have joined NATO that were part of the Soviet sphere. Poland, Estonia, Latvia, among others, joined the West. Ukraine here is the last territory left, and Putin wants it back. To do so will cost thousands, if not tens of thousands, of Russian lives and Ukrainian casualties in the hundreds of thousands. Yet, at the current moment, military experts believe Putin has enough troops to invade but not fully occupy Ukraine, which brings us to the Russians' favorite term, hybrid war, a brew of traditional military attacks, guerrilla warfare, cyber attacks, wild disinformation campaigns like the one going on, now claiming atrocities by Ukraine against the Russians. I lived through this playbook back in 2014 when Putin took parts of southern Ukraine with his little green men. Now we wait to see if this will be his next move. You can see the Daily Mail, a pretext for war is what they are calling it. Ariel Cohen, non-U.S., non-resident, senior fellow, Atlantic Council, and author, Russia, Imperialism, Development, and Crisis. Mr. Cohen, good to see you, sir. We appreciate it. The Ukrainians have learned lesson number 1, never give up your nukes. Is there an explanation now for what we are seeing by Vladimir Putin if he is not going to invade?
Well, first of all, I got a word today from my friends in a European intelligence service that is usually quite accurate that he is going to invade tomorrow or day after. There is a slight chance, I would say 10%, that after Olaf Scholz, the German chancellor, is visiting, he will not invade for now. He will try to continue negotiating and try to squeeze the concessions from the US, NATO, and the Europeans. And I would say one thing. It is more important to sustain Ukrainian nationhood, Ukrainian independence, and whatever is left after Ukrainian territorial integrity after 2014, after Russia occupied the Crimea, my birthplace, and Donetsk and Luhansk, the cities in the east, then cling to some kind of a formal arrangement about NATO that Germany and France already said they are against.
Yeah, no, it's amazing it's amazing how weak and feckless both the French and the Germans have been on this. If anyone should understand what Russian aggression can do, it should be them. They should be the most worried. But it brings up this important point. If you give Vladimir Putin these concessions, you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to want to get a glass of milk. He knows that we're weak and feckless.
Not only that, Putin, by insisting on NATO leaving not just Ukraine, I mean, Ukraine is not a member of NATO, but the West not having any kind of military cooperation with Ukraine. That's what the Kremlin wants. That opens the door widely for Russia to use force in Ukraine to topple the elected government and to start integrating Ukraine and Belarus. You mentioned Belarus before.
Real quick, Mr. Cohen, I only got about 15 seconds. When Vladimir Putin sees the U.S. withdrawing its diplomats in sort of this crisis-like, crazy sort of view from the White House, does that weaken U.S. credibility?
No. Why would it? We are committed to independence of Ukraine. We said we will support Ukrainians if the Russians come and they want to fight. Biden said he'll provide arms, and Russia may be stuck there for a very long time and suffering from very serious sanctions.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Hey, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much. We'll wait and see if your predictions from your intelligence friends come true. We want to introduce you to a few American Olympic heroes tonight that you've never heard of. The list goes on. Here's Jake Chelios, son of Hockey Hall of Famer Chris Chelios. If you are slightly confused, American Olympian wearing a Chinese jersey, get ready to go from confused to angry. Chelios told reporters, "You do start to feel a closeness to China. We've been eating Chinese food. We've been living the Chinese culture. So there's a certain closeness you start to feel with China, and you start to feel like you're actually going to represent them and you want to win from them." This is the country Jake wants to win for. We're going to keep showing you this side-by-side picture every night during the Olympics because NBC will not. Minorities in China, heads shaved and shackled, lined up and waiting for a train to a concentration camp. That's on the left. This is happening in China every day. This is who Jake has a closeness for. On the right is Nazi Germany lining up Jews heading to the gas chamber. And it's not just Jake. You see part of China's Olympic hockey team, actually the majority, 17 of the 25 players are either American or Canadian. They couldn't make it in the NHL, so they went to go play in a Chinese league and now play for the Chinese Olympic team. The Wall Street Journal did a fantastic job outlining the quite crazy way they got around all the rules to represent their new country. It's pretty surreal, and it's pretty cool to put the Chinese sweater on, says Jeremy Smith from Michigan. He's the goalie. The money must be pretty good, too. They have all become Chinese heroes with the opportunity for endorsement deals galore. Remember Jake? He goes by Jake Chelios when playing for his adoptive country. Well, sort of adoptive country. You might remember last week we told you about Elaine Gu, the American skier who decided she could get better endorsement deals skiing for China. Chinese law doesn't represent or allow for dual citizenship. So she and Jake and his comrades chose China. These are the sponsors and endorsement deals that Gu gets for a lot of money. Fine, good riddance. But it appears he might not love his new country all that much. When asked whether he had naturalized as a Chinese citizen, Chelios said, "I don't think we're supposed to comment on that." Amazing how that works. But according to New York Magazine, any coverage of this situation is racist. Why are we so suddenly and performatively squeamish about a top athlete leveraging their talent to unapologetically live the capitalist dream in a time when drumming up sentiment against one notable Chinese person means more violence and dangers to all Asians? Americans vilifying Gu shouldn't come so easily. All right, that's Chelsea Peng writing in The Cut. We've asked Chelsea Peng to come on the show. Stay tuned. In the meantime, we bring on Amber Athey of The Spectator magazine, who's been investigating the media companies towing Beijing's line. Amber, why is there so many media companies so silent about something that is just so enraging?
I think there's two things going on here. First of all, the media for a long time has accepted Chinese money. If you go back the past 10, 20 years and look at the inserts for the New York Times or the Washington Post and some of these other major outlets, you'll see things like China Daily and other state-run Chinese media outlets paying millions of dollars to run their advertisements in our corporate media. And then second, I think that the media is very slow to come around to the fact that China is no longer a friend to the United States, that it's no longer acceptable for people to talk about China as if it's anything but our biggest geopolitical foe right now. And it's really their last gasp of trying to make China cool. I mean, just today, when Eileen Gu was participating in the qualifying round for the slopestyle event in freestyle skiing, you had multiple American media outlets fawning over the fact that she ate a sandwich after her qualifying run, as if this was something to be proud of, or if that she was doing something particularly hip or awesome. So it's a combination of both financial and political incentives here for the media.
Yeah, well, and also, if you dare talk about it, as we have and as you have, the Chinese government, in the form of their Twitter bots and the Chinese embassies, come for you. We put up our report on Gu last week onto our YouTube page. It got a huge number of views, but record numbers of comments. Self-Rousseau Lee, I feel sorry for this program host. He was raised in such a narrow-visioned, biased, and arrogant society. I guess if standing up for people in concentration camps make us biased and arrogant, then bring it on. Ex-Fu, how many China-born or educated people have won gold medals for America? Why never say those should belong to China? Probably because the people came to America and wanted to be here rather than in China. But I digress. Is this sort of line that if you dare talk about Jake or Elaine or any of these other people, somehow you're racist? Does that silence folks as well?
I certainly think so. And you can look at the way that this happens in various sports leagues. For example, the National Basketball Association infamously was preventing fans from bringing in signs in support of the Uyghurs in China back during this most previous season. And they didn't want their players to be speaking out about what's going on in China because, again, they have these massive financial incentives because China is one of their biggest markets. And I think it's really ironic and sad that you have these Chinese bots that come out on social media. Meanwhile, people who actually live in China are not allowed to freely use social media. So apparently it's only acceptable if they're going on to defend the motherland, so to speak. And Eileen Gu was actually asked about this.
Yeah, you made a great point, though, just now about the NBA, which is if you brought in any kind of Black Lives Matter signs or whatever, somehow that was acceptable to speak out about that social justice. Nished out about the Uyghurs. Real quick, Global Times headlines. This is the Chinese Communist mouthpiece. Anti-China NBA player mocked after being waived by the Houston Rockets. This is about Enes Kanter Freedom, who has spoken out against China and has clearly paid for his job with it. Will there be any backlash against the NBA over this?
I think so. Enes Kanter Freedom has a really big platform, and unfortunately for the NBA, he is not going to be silenced anytime soon. He's made quite clear that he is not interested in having his voice tamped down, regardless of what the consequences are. So I don't think this is the last that we're going to hear about this at all. If there was any backlash for Colin Kaepernick no longer being in the NFL, I would imagine it could potentially be even greater in this situation because Enes Kanter is actually much more talented than Kaepernick was at the time.
What a great thing it would be if there was a backlash against the NBA for this. Amber, keep up the great reporting. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
The #2 Republican in Georgia says he does not like a plan to split Atlanta into two different municipalities. This summer, we told you how people living in the wealthy part of Atlanta are trying to secede from Atlanta because of rising crime. They want to create the city of Buckhead. The city saw more than 21,000 offenses last year. This is all of Atlanta, with crimes like homicide, rape, and robbery. Of those crimes, 158 were murders, 166 rapes, and more than 3,000 were carjackings. Outside of the crime, people in Buckhead, this is the wealthier part of town, say the city of Atlanta takes their tax dollars for granted, which is an estimated $100 million per year. Georgia Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan believes the plan to split into two cities won't fix the crime problem. He joins us now. Good to see you, sir. We appreciate it. This was really a Republican-led movement out of Buckhead, which is the conservative enclave in Atlanta. Why would you be against people trying to get better police protection for themselves?
Yeah, I've spent the better part of 6 months asking some tough questions and making sure we didn't overpromise and underdeliver if we did go through the legislative action of creating a new city. And those questions were simple. If we want to reduce crime, what's the plan? How are we going to deal with the bond packages between the city of Atlanta and the proposed city of Buckhead? And what would we do with the schools? And not only did I not get a satisfying answer, I didn't get any answers on those questions. And so I wanted to focus on a plan that was more comprehensive than just the city of Buckhead and putting up some shiny signs. And so we're working hard to try to make sure all of Atlanta becomes safer.
Well, it's certainly a fantastic hope to have all of Atlanta become safer. You think, though, Atlanta police retirements or resignations, 200 plus since 2020, like a lot of big cities, they're having a hard time hiring police officers. You had a very anti-police mayor for a while there. How do people in a city like in a part of a city like Buckhead feel safe in a city where the police are that underfunded and stretched so thin?
Yeah, great question. And that's exactly what we're doing here in Georgia, is trying to figure out how to refund the police. There was this crazy period of time where some select few thought that just the notion of saying defund the police made any sense, and it didn't. We've lost hundreds of police officers to retirement and other places. And so we've launched some legislative ideas. One is the Less Crime Act, LESS, and it's strictly focused on trying to let corporations and citizens write checks directly to law enforcement agencies to help them hire more, pay more, and equip them better.
All right, so how much of this is a partisan issue? Just recently, it seems as though even top Democrats have now decided that defund the police is not a great idea. Cori Bush, who is sort of one of the lone progressives, part of the squad, says defund the police is not the problem. We dangled the carrot in front of people's faces and said we can get it done, and the Democrats deliver when we haven't totally deserved. And then Nancy Pelosi said this. Take a listen.
With all the respect in the world for Cori Bush, that is not the position of the Democratic Party. Community safety, to protect and defend in every way, is our oath of office.
A lot of Democrats in Atlanta. Stacey Abrams, who has possible presidential ambitions. You've got a mayor in Atlanta. Are they on board with this?
Well, I'm certainly proud of the team effort here. We passed the Less Crime Act in the Senate, 52-0, bipartisan, unanimous. I've had great support from our new mayor, Andre Dickens, and others inside the Senate. Look, this is a bipartisan problem. Crime is a bipartisan problem, and I think we need to have a bipartisan solution. I'm one that thinks that refunding the police is a good strategy. Defund the police was a shallow political phrase that absolutely destroyed the safety of our communities around this big city. And I'm ready to turn the page and move on. And Leland, quite honestly, as a conservative, as a Republican, as somebody who wants to move on from the past election cycle, I think we need to be the party of ideas and solutions again, and this is one of those.
All right, well, we'll see how it works in Atlanta. The numbers will speak for themselves. The stats always do. Actions also speak for themselves. We want to say happy Valentine's Day to your wife who came with you to the studio. Nothing quite says love, Lieutenant Governor, like bringing your wife to a television hit on Valentine's Day.
Absolutely. I thought she'd be super impressed coming here with me.
Well, we're super grateful that you all spent a little bit of Valentine's Day with us. Thank her for us, and we'll see you soon.
All right, Leland. Thanks, man.
Yeah, good to see you. Long-term investment that requires your time, energy, emotion, money. No, it's not your stock portfolio. It's your dating life. Coming up, does the high cost of dating yield a good return on investment? That's next. Since this is Valentine's Day and you're spending it with us, perhaps you're single or maybe about to become single and looking for some dating advice. Dating, after all, is a long-term investment. Your time, your energy, and your money. The average American spends $1,600 a year on dating. That's according to Match.com, who might have a little bit of skin in the game. Here's what else $1,600 can get you. Down payment on a Ford Focus, a new Apple MacBook Pro, a 55-inch LG TV, 3,200 marshmallow peeps to get you ready for Easter, or a flamethrower, interestingly enough. So you may now be asking yourself, is the cost of dating worth it, and will I get that return on my investment? To help us answer those questions, Leland Vittert, professor at Washington University in St. Louis, features editor of the Harvard Data Science Review, and my favorite sister, who I get to spend Valentine's Day with. All right, Liberty, $1,600 per year in dating. Do you get to fall in love more than once for this?
Well, I mean, unless you want the flamethrower, then yes, you do get to fall in love more than once. A lot of people, bear with me through this, okay? Humans are like fish. So fish go through their lives and they reject the first 37% of partners that they could be with. And then the next one that comes along that's better than the rest of the fish they've been with is the one they settle down with. So we can think of that like human nature. You play the field in the 20s and then you settle down. So if you think you're going to have 10 love partners in life, you'd reject the first 4, and then the next one that comes along that's better than the first 4 is the one that you settle down with. It's a fine balance between having the patience to wait for the right one and having the foresight to cash in before all the good ones are taken.
I really just wish we had the graphics department figure out a way to do this with fish. It would have been great. But you think about this, the cost of dating continues to go up, right? And it's not like it used to be where you just get set up. There's dating apps, and then you've got to send flowers on Valentine's Day. It's not cheap. Do you actually get anything for the $121,000 the average American spends on dating in their lifetime?
Well, I'm still waiting for my Valentine's Day flowers from my dear brother. But yes, dating is going way up. With the invention of apps, people are going on more dates than ever. The grass is always greener. We even have people going on 2 dates a night or double dipping into their dates every night. So you also see it, though, in everyone. People are spending 4 times more on dating, but it's not just men, it's also women, because a lot of times now women are paying for half of the date as well.
Yeah, you know, chivalry seems to be dead. Joe Ward, our producer, who is single and interested in this conversation, I think he actually, you know, Joe needs to listen to that. You know, you can get the girl to pay. You might find some more dates.
Don't do that, Joe. Don't do that.
Is it worth it, though? Are married people actually happier over time?
Well, I'm not sure it's worth it if you can get the flamethrower, because married people are only slightly happier than divorced or single people. So divorced people, I'm sorry, are in the lowest level of life satisfaction. Then it comes single people, then it comes married. But both divorced and married people go on these huge ups and downs, whereas single people spend their life at a pretty good level of satisfaction. So I guess it's what level of volatility you're willing to have in your life.
We talk about how expensive things are, and the word of one of my good friends, divorces are so expensive because they're worth it. That's way more. Divorces are way more expensive than dating to begin with. Liberty, enjoy the rest of your Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Coming up next, NewsNation's Robert Sherman live from the most protected part of the southern border. New data about whether walls work when we come back. Welcome back. As we close the show tonight, new data from the border shows an unsurprising but perhaps politically inconvenient truth. Walls work. Amid record high illegal immigration, areas of the southern border with walls see far, far fewer illegal crossings than those without walls. NewsNation border correspondent Robert Sherman uncovered the numbers as part of his trek along every mile of the U.S.-Mexico border and joins us from the U.S. side of the Tijuana border. Robert, good evening.
Good evening to you, Leland. And when we talk about the U.S.-Mexico border, this is the mother of all border crossings, San Isidro. There are more people who go through this port of entry every day than any other port of entry in the Western Hemisphere, 4th most in the entire world. And as you mentioned, right across the way, you can see over some of those tall buildings, that's Tijuana, one of the largest cities in Mexico. It would stand to reason that you would see a lot of migrant encounters and apprehensions, perhaps even the most, in this area. The numbers show that is far from the truth. We actually have a graphic to show you ranking all of the different Border Patrol sectors in terms of migrant apprehensions this fiscal year, so just over the last couple of months. Rio Grande Valley, that's number one. There's no surprise there. That has always been viewed as the epicenter of these migrant crossings. Second, you have Del Rio, Texas, and third, you have Yuma, Arizona. Those numbers illustrate massive surges in both of those sectors. The Yuma sector alone up over 2,000% this fiscal year. Where's San Diego? So all the way down in 6th on that ranking. The Border Patrol agents that we spoke with today say it's pretty clear as to why that is. They describe the infrastructure here in the San Diego area as, quote, second to none compared to anywhere else on the U.S.-Mexico border. You have a lot of border wall that's been built here. In fact, there are some areas where if you do try and illegally cross, you'll have to go over 2 or 3 border walls in order to get into the United States. You also walk around here, you see a lot of Border Patrol agents, a lot of DHS officers and law enforcement in general. So the infrastructure, the resources, it's all here. Conversely, you go to the east to Yuma, Arizona, over in the Yuma sector, it's a very different situation over there. And the Border Patrol agents that we speak with show that there are large gaps in a wall over there, but there's also just not enough personnel in order to patrol such a large area. So lacking infrastructure, lacking resources. We saw the headlines
Robert,
before.
I hate to cut you off. We got to run. We'll check in with you tomorrow along the border. Dan's next. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.